Mistress drugged the pregnant wife Millionaire, helped her do it, until the baby's first word revealed everything. In a world gilded by luxury and distorted by ambition, one secret can unravel everything. Beneath the chandeliers of an opulent mansion and behind the facade of perfect smiles, dark intentions brewed between a cunning mistress and a millionaire with everything to lose. Their target? His unsuspecting pregnant wife, whose fragile happiness hung by a thread. A powerful web of manipulation, deceit, and betrayal spiraled, threatening to destroy generations yet unborn. But destiny often hides a trump card, an unlikely hero. In this riveting tale of lust and greed, a child's first word will tear the veil of lies and uncover a truth that no one saw coming. Elena Farnham had always believed in happy endings, partly because her life had been sprinkled with just enough fairy tale moments to make her trust in them. Born Elena Rossi, she grew up in the sunlit lanes of Florence, Italy. Her parents owned a modest olive farm on the outskirts of the city, a place marked by the simple joys of homemade pasta dinners and relatives visiting for long Sunday lunches. Childhood for Elena was warm, safe, and drenched in love. She was 19 when she traveled to the United States for college, driven by the wide-eyed excitement of a dreamer. It was there, in an economics class at a prestigious university, that she first met Marcus Farnham. Marcus was already a legend among students, even at 22, heir to the Farnham estate, rumored to be connected to the Farnham real estate group, and recognized for his calculated brilliance. Their meeting was far from romantic at first glance. Elena, still grappling with English phrases, stumbled through a question in class about market fluctuations. Marcus, who sat behind her, offered to walk her through some practice problems. His gentle confidence captivated her, and she found herself looking forward to each study session more for his company than the test scores. Their romance blossomed in the hush of the campus library and the glow of campus coffee shops. Marcus, for all his wealth, was surprisingly unpretentious, at least in Elena's eyes. He admired her sincerity, her willingness to embrace new experiences, and her faith in the inherent goodness of people. She, in turn, was drawn to his sharp mind and the kindness he extended beyond his privileged background. By the time they graduated, they were inseparable. A whirlwind wedding in Palm Beach followed a year later, attended by just close friends and family. That was how Elena Farnham entered the realm of opulence. A far cry from her humble roots in Florence, she learned to navigate galas and dinner parties. She discovered how to speak of fine wines, real estate acquisitions, philanthropic ventures, and politics with a confidence she borrowed from Marcus. Yet in the earliest months of her marriage, Elena's pure joy shimmered with no sign of the tragedies soon to unfold. She had no inkling that cruelty often hides behind polished smiles, or how quickly illusions could shatter. If there was any foreboding, she couldn't have recognized it in time. And so she lived, waltzing through the Farnham mansion in ignorance, believing her fairy tale had only just begun. Harper Lane was the embodiment of mystery. She was introduced to Elena during an elegant benefit fundraiser in downtown Miami for underprivileged children, a cause dear to Elena's heart. Marcus had offered a substantial donation, and the committee, thrilled to have a Farnham in attendance, set up a special press conference. That was when Harper slipped into Elena's orbit. A striking woman with dark hair, Harper had sharp features softened by an almost feline grace. She seemed to know everyone of consequence, and her name was whispered in all the right circles. She was rumored to be an interior designer, though specifics about her portfolio were scarce. Someone mentioned her father owned an art gallery in New York. Another said she was once engaged to a minor European royal. The only universal agreement was that Harper Lane never wanted for money or attention. Elena noticed that whenever they spoke in a group, Harper's eyes often shifted, not to Elena, but to Marcus. Subtle, yes, but there was a definite glimmer of interest. It was enough to make Elena uneasy, though she quickly chastised herself for any hint of jealousy. After all, Marcus was the love of her life, and he had never been anything but devoted. His faithfulness was a pillar she relied on, as unshakable as her belief in love itself. Over the next few weeks, Harper became an unexpected fixture in their social life. She often seemed to be around at gatherings, invited by some friend of a friend. She lavished compliments on Elena's style, offered her insights on the Farnham mansion's decor, and claimed a deep admiration for Elena's philanthropic pursuits. Elena found it flattering at first. It made her feel accepted in a world she still sometimes felt was beyond her heritage. She was surprised to find that whenever she and Harper were together, the conversation always steered to Marcus, how he was so brilliant, so different from the brash men Harper usually met. "I hope you realize how lucky you are, Elena," Harper said one evening, leaning in like they were co-conspirators. "Men like Marcus are almost impossible to find." Elena smiled. "I do. I realize it every day." Those words were sincere. She was glad to share them, but if she had known the darkness lurking behind Harper's praise, she would have run far, far away that night. Whispers began, as they always do in wealthy circles. Elena heard from a mutual acquaintance that Harper was friendly with a variety of men, celebrities, businessmen, even a well-known art collector. The rumor mill was relentless. But there was always an undercurrent of confusion. Harper never publicly dated any of these men, and no official relationships formed. It was as though she existed in a social realm fueled only by suggestive glances and elusive stories. Meanwhile, Elena's relationship with Marcus seemed rock solid. They were planning for a family. Elena was overjoyed when a doctor confirmed she was pregnant. She surprised Marcus with a small gift box containing a pair of baby shoes one winter evening. His delight made her eyes brim with tears. They embraced, giggling like children, giddy with the promise of a new life. But as Elena's pregnancy progressed, the demands on Marcus's time grew more intense. He was finalizing a significant real estate deal in Manhattan, one that required frequent travel. Elena tried to be patient. She told herself that his busyness was a temporary inconvenience, and that after the new Farnham Tower was launched, he'd return to focusing on their growing family. Yet the more absent Marcus became, the more Harper Lane seemed to hover in Elena's sphere. Whether Elena was attending a gallery opening or a casual lunch with friends, Harper would appear always warm and supportive, always speaking in gentle, sympathetic tones. She offered to visit Elena at the Farnham mansion while Marcus was away, to keep her company. Elena, feeling a bit lonely and naive to the possibility of betrayal, welcomed her company. During these visits, Harper admired the Farnham estate with unbridled awe. She lingered over the paintings, asked about the Farnham family history, and tested every plush seat in the formal living room. "This home is a museum of your memories," she commented once. "I can see the love you've put into it. I've tried to make it comfortable, not just a showplace," Elena said, smiling. Harper nodded. "It's more than comfortable. It's perfect." Then she looked around like she was assessing something deeper than just furniture and decor. "Everything you have is perfect, Elena. I hope you realize that." A shiver scurried through Eleanor's spine. Harper's tone was oddly intense, almost covetous, but she brushed it aside, reminding herself that pregnancy hormones made her overly sensitive. She had no idea that beneath that flattering gaze, seeds of a twisted scheme were already growing. It was in mid-June, around Elena's 5th month of pregnancy, that she first noticed a shift in Marcus's behavior. His once affectionate messages while traveling became sporadic, briefer. Calls she made to him at night went unanswered, with short texts explaining he was in endless meetings. Elena tried not to worry. She reminded herself that corporate deals often demanded total focus. Marcus's father, the late Harold Farnham, had always urged him, "A Farnham's word is his bond. Don't fail to close a deal because you're distracted." Marcus had grown up with that weight on his shoulders, so perhaps it was only natural that he poured his energy into the biggest negotiation of his life. Still, her intuition nudged at her. Sometimes, late in the evening, she'd sit alone on the balcony, stroking her belly, and wonder why she felt so unsettled. Then, around the same time, Harper announced she was traveling up to New York City to finalize some design work. She mentioned it offhandedly during one of their lunches, but her gaze flickered a bit too quickly to gauge Elena's reaction. Elena didn't think much of it until Harper showed her a picture of a swanky Manhattan hotel suite she claimed to be her temporary lodging. "That's near Farnham Tower," Elena said, trying to be casual. "Marcus is up there often now." "Oh, is it?" Harper smiled, biting her lip. Such a coincidence. Something about that exchange lingered with Elena long after Harper left. She tried to call Marcus that evening, thinking, perhaps he's free for dinner with Harper, maybe he can meet up with both of us. But he didn't answer, and she found herself feeling a strange pang unease. Weeks passed, and slowly Elena began to see a pattern emerge. Marcus would return from a work trip, distant and restless. No longer did he press his ear to her belly to talk to the baby. No longer did he celebrate every milestone of her pregnancy as though it were a miracle. Instead, he seemed preoccupied with texts and phone calls he took privately. It was on a rainy afternoon in late July that Elena found the first real clue. While tidying up the library, she picked up Marcus's laptop bag from the desk. His laptop was half out of the case, and a slip of paper had fallen out, a receipt from an upscale boutique in Manhattan. The item purchased was a diamond pendant engraved with the initials HL. Elena's stomach churned. Realizing the meaning of HL was like being plunged into ice water. She felt her pulse beat in her throat. Harper Lane. Every explanation she tried to conjure, maybe it's a gift for a client, maybe it's a coincidence, collapsed beneath the stark truth of those initials. Elena placed the slip of paper back, her hands trembling, and tried to steady her breathing. She fought to remain calm, telling herself she had to be sure before leaping to conclusions. But deep down, it felt like her world was on the cusp of shattering. Elena considered confronting Marcus as soon as he returned that evening. But when he entered the foyer, she saw how his shoulders slumped with fatigue, his eyes ringed with exhaustion. She hesitated, feeling torn between her heartbreak and the child that grew inside her. She knew stress could harm her pregnancy, and she wanted to protect her baby above all else. Instead, she said nothing about the receipt. She watched Marcus over dinner, her mouth too dry to eat. He was kinder than he had been on previous nights, perhaps noticing her paleness. He asked about her health, spoke about remodeling the baby's nursery, and even tried to be affectionate. She felt numb to his touch, uncertain how to respond. Late that night, while Marcus slept, Elena composed an email to an old friend from college, Lauren Patterson, who now worked as a private investigator in Boston. Elena had always admired Lauren's grit, and she needed someone discreet and reliable. She asked for advice without naming names in a cryptic way. If you suspected a loved one might be involved with someone else, how would you proceed to gather proof? Lauren's reply arrived within a day. Take photos, gather evidence, but stay safe. Don't let your suspicion be known if you want the truth to surface. I'll help if you need more hands-on support. Shaken by the idea of having to spy on her own husband, Elena felt trapped, but determined to know the truth. She set aside her heartbreak. She would discover what was happening, for herself and for the baby. Unbeknownst to Elena, Marcus was unraveling in ways she could never have imagined. When he had first met Harper Lane in Manhattan at a private lounge, he had succumbed to the allure of her seductive charm. What started as a drunken flirtation quickly spiraled into a full-blown affair, fueled by secrecy and lust. Marcus had never intended to betray Elena. Guilt gnawed at him. Yet there was a reckless thrill in Harper's unpredictable nature, in the adoration she lavished on him, freed from the constraints of marriage. By the time he realized how dangerous Harper was, it was already too late. She possessed incriminating photos, times they were together, intimate moments that could be catastrophic if leaked to the press. For a Farnham, respectability and reputation were paramount. Harper recognized that leverage and used it. She told Marcus she wanted more. She wanted to be with him, not just in secret, but openly. "Marriages dissolve all the time," she would whisper. "It can happen with a decent settlement. Elena is so sweet, she'll cope, but we belong together. We have something hotter, something real." Initially, Marcus refused. He cared for Elena, and the idea of divorce terrified him, especially with a baby on the way. But Harper had a plan. One night, as they drank expensive champagne in a secluded Manhattan penthouse, Harper laid out the twisted blueprint. If they could make Elena appear unstable or incapacitated, the marriage could be ended under conditions that favored Marcus. They wouldn't even need a scandal. They could quietly handle it if Elena was unfit somehow. She had read about such tactics in sensational stories. She explained that by causing Elena's health to deteriorate at a critical time, it would become easier for Marcus to argue for sole custody of the child once born and quietly secure a divorce. The Farnham fortune could remain intact, and Harper could slip into the role of the new Miss S. Farnham. Marcus initially balked in horror. He slammed his glass on the table, cursing Harper's cruelty. But Harper pressed him, taunting him with threats of releasing the affair photos. She insisted she would be careful, micro-doses of a medication that would make Elena disoriented, weak, prone to fainting, maybe even cause complications. Just enough so the doctors might see Elena as an at-risk mother. Just enough for the Farnhams to swoop in. Somewhere in Marcus's mind, he convinced himself that this was a necessary step to prevent a bigger catastrophe. He rationalized that it would be a mild measure, and once Elena's condition was questioned, he would step in with doctors, ensure she got the best care, and claim custody of the child. Then he'd extricate himself from Harper's clutches. Deluded by fear and blackmail, he agreed to the plan, ignoring the monstrous nature of it. While Elena reached her 6th month, exhaustion weighed on her like a stone. She chalked it up to typical pregnancy fatigue, but it seemed to worsen day by day. She found herself dizzy at odd times, her vision blurring momentarily. She often felt faint for no apparent reason. The Farnham family doctor, Dr. Melvin Bardo, performed routine prenatal checkups, not detecting anything unusual in her blood work, though Elena sometimes wondered if the staff truly ran thorough tests or simply trusted the Farnham name to do no wrong. Harper frequently visited with homemade nutritional shakes and herbal teas. She insisted on preparing them herself to ensure Elena was getting all the vitamins necessary for a healthy baby. Grateful, and in a moment of naive trust, Elena drank them without suspicion. Soon, the dizziness turned into migraines, and the migraines into a pervasive weakness. Harper consoled her. "Pregnancy can be unpredictable. Try to rest." Marcus, distant and racked with guilt, pretended to be compassionate whenever he was home, but he often left Elena alone, allegedly to handle business, all the while letting Harper administer carefully measured doses of medication that left Elena in a fog. Lauren Patterson, the old college friend, grew concerned upon hearing Elena's updates. She sensed something was amiss and drove down to Florida under the guise of a vacation. Elena wept in relief to have an ally by her side. Lauren discreetly took photos of Harper's visits, the shakes she prepared, and the subtle changes in Elena's condition. She even tested a leftover cup's contents at a local lab under a fake name. The preliminary results alarmed her. Traces of a sedative commonly used for severe anxiety disorders, something not prescribed to Elena. The puzzle pieces were aligning for Lauren, but she had no direct proof linking the tampering to either Harper or Marcus. Harper's presence and the receipt from the Manhattan jewelry store were suspicious, but not conclusive. Lauren tried to persuade Elena to pack her bags and leave, at least until after the baby arrived. But Elena, ever hopeful, wanted to believe that Marcus was not involved. She wanted to give him a chance to explain, convinced there must be some misunderstanding. She was too terrified to face the idea that her own husband would conspire to harm her. Marcus's mother, Clarissa Farnham, a regal woman who split her time between Florida and her lake house in Vermont, returned home unexpectedly one weekend. She sensed the tension in the mansion from the moment she stepped inside. She found Elena pale and trembling, forcing a smile. Clarissa had never fully approved of Elena. She thought her too simple, but she recognized something was deeply wrong. "Marcus, what on earth is happening here?" Clarissa cornered him in the library. "Your wife looks unwell. She's carrying your child, and I've never seen her so frightened." "She's had a difficult pregnancy," Marcus murmured, avoiding his mother's probing gaze. "Nonsense, doctor." Bardot said her checkups have been unremarkable. "Don't feed me excuses. I know when someone is being lied to." Marcus fumbled for an explanation, resorting to vague statements about stress and Elena's fragile constitution. But Clarissa, while stern, was not heartless. She insisted Elena get a second medical opinion. She also demanded that Dr. Bardot run a comprehensive new panel of tests. Caught off guard, Marcus tried to dissuade her, but Clarissa was immovable. Meanwhile, Harper observed this new complication with rising panic. She pressured Marcus to accelerate their plan. Threatening him again with exposure, she proposed adding a stronger dose, something that could trigger a mild medical crisis. Not enough to permanently harm mother or child, she claimed, but enough to raise alarms and paint Elena in an even more unfit light. Torn between protecting his reputation and protecting his unborn child, Marcus stood at a precipice. He was descending into an abyss from which he feared there might be no return. A week later, Elena was hospitalized after collapsing near the garden fountain. She had been sipping one of Harper's shakes moments before. Clarissa Farnham and Lauren Patterson were both present when Elena fell, which turned out to be a stroke of luck. Clarissa immediately called an ambulance, while Lauren quickly seized the abandoned cup, careful to preserve it for testing. At the hospital, doctors managed to stabilize Elena. The baby appeared unharmed, but the medical team was baffled by Elena's condition. She had dangerously low blood pressure and neurological symptoms consistent with sedative intoxication. When Clarissa and Lauren demanded a toxicology screen be run, Dr. Bardot seemed oddly hesitant. Lauren suspected that Dr. Bardot, loyal to the Farnham family, might be compromised. She insisted on an independent lab test, raising her voice in a way that surprised even Clarissa. As Elena regained consciousness, she saw Marcus standing at her bedside, tears in his eyes. She reached out to him, her voice cracked. "Why?" He shook his head, but tears streamed down his cheeks. "I'm sorry," he whispered, which only made her confusion worse. She thought he might be apologizing for being an inattentive husband, for neglecting her while she was pregnant. In reality, his remorse seeped from a far darker source. That night, while Elena slept under sedation, Clarissa Farnham left the hospital to confront her son in private. The older woman's eyes blazed with fury. "Explain to me why the lab found traces of powerful sedatives in the cup Lauren retrieved from the mansion," Clarissa demanded. "Do you realize the consequences?" Marcus, shaking, avoided her gaze. He tried to pin the blame on Harper's manipulations and blackmail, but Clarissa was not a woman to be placated with half-truths. She pressed, threatened to disown him if he didn't tell her the entire story. Finally, he confessed haltingly about the affair, about Harper's blackmail, about the horrifying plan he'd allowed to proceed, though he had not realized how dangerous it would become. Clarissa's face twisted with revulsion. She slapped Marcus with enough force to jerk his head to the side. "You fool," she spat, her voice trembling. "Elena could have died. My grandchild could have died." She wanted to call the police, have Harper arrested. But the Farnham name, the Farnham legacy, she hesitated, torn between wanting to save Elena and wanting to keep the family intact. Old habits die hard, and saving face was second nature to the Farnhams. Clarissa decided they needed to handle the matter privately, ensure Elena's recovery, and quietly remove Harper from their lives. She left the hospital with a plan to confront Harper herself. Harper Lane sensed she was being cornered. Marcus's sudden withdrawal, Clarissa's increased presence, Lauren's watchful eye, everything pointed to the walls closing in. Harper had always been cunning. She had backup blackmail stashed away, even beyond the illicit affair photos. She had recorded private conversations with Marcus. She had maintained a diary, meticulously noting every moment they spent together. If she was going down, she would bring them all down with her. For days she hovered around the hospital, refusing to leave, insisting she was a close friend, worried about Elena's condition. The staff recognized her from prior visits with Elena and allowed her to remain in the waiting room. Meanwhile, Clarissa Farnham tried to speak to hospital administrators about revoking Harper's visitation privileges, but without a direct reason, the hospital was powerless to remove her. Marcus mostly hid in shame. He slept in his office, answering only calls from Clarissa. He could not bear to face Elena. The guilt was suffocating. Then Harper made her move. She confronted Clarissa in the hospital courtyard late one evening, brandishing a manila folder filled with damning evidence. "If you try to keep me away from Marcus," she warned, "I will leak all of this to the media. The Farnham empire will crumble. Your philanthropic image will be tarnished forever. And I can make it look like Elena was complicit or that she was incompetent as a wife." Clarissa regarded Harper with cold loathing. "You evil little viper," Harper smirked. "I'm pragmatic, Mistress Farnham, and I know how to survive in a world that worships power. I'm not going anywhere unless I get what I want." "What is it you want?" Clarissa asked, though she already suspected the answer. "I want Marcus and the Farnham name, my rightful place. Elena's time is done." Though Clarissa's fury was immeasurable, she knew better than to lash out physically. She stood rigid, fists clenched, scanning Harper's triumphant posture. "You will never be part of this family," she said in a low hiss. "I'd sell the entire Farnham estate brick by brick before seeing you carry our name." Harper's eyes narrowed. "We'll see about that." Elena eventually stabilized enough to be discharged and return home, though she remained frail. The Farnham mansion, once a haven, felt haunted to her. Lauren stayed by her side, refusing to leave her alone. Clarissa, though not a woman who easily apologizes, hovered protectively, ensuring Elena had everything she needed. When Elena was strong enough to have a frank conversation, Clarissa and Lauren explained all they had discovered. They spoke carefully, aware of Elena's delicate state, but Elena sensed the weight of the betrayal. Each detail hammered at her heart. She sobbed, at times convulsing with despair, at others going numb. She couldn't fathom how Marcus could have stooped to such cruelty, no matter the blackmail, that he had conspired even passively in harming her, and their unborn child was too enormous to grasp. But there was more to the story, Clarissa revealed. Harper's blackmail threat. If it succeeded, all Farnham assets, Elena's own safety, even her child's future, were at risk. The Farnhams would be mired in scandal for years. Elena felt her sense of security vanish. She realized that if the mistress had the gall to drug her, she might do worse. One night, Elena forced herself to speak to Marcus. Their conversation in the mansion study was a far cry from the tender moments that once graced their marriage. He tried to apologize, tears streaking his cheeks, but Elena remained distant. She demanded to know why. He mumbled about his fear of scandal, about being trapped, about being blackmailed by Harper. He insisted he never intended for her to be seriously harmed, that he believed the sedatives were mild, just enough to raise questions about her stability. Elena stared at him, voice trembling with rage. "You put your reputation above the life of your wife and child. Do you realize there's no coming back from that?" Marcus's eyes glistened with remorse. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it, but please, let me fix this. Let me protect you and the baby now." She shook her head, tears stinging. "I don't trust you. I can't." Though her words gutted him, he vowed to do anything to keep her safe. He knew he owed Elena his full cooperation. Under Clarissa's guidance, he planned to set Harper up for a final confrontation, gather evidence, and ensure she could never harm Elena or extort the Farnhams again. Marcus sat in his parked car outside the opulent restaurant in downtown Miami, beads of sweat forming on his brow despite the air conditioning. His hands clenched the steering wheel as he rehearsed the lines he would have to say to Harper. There was no turning back now. Everything hinged on tonight's confrontation. After the numerous lies, betrayals, and near-fatal drugging of his wife, Elena, this was his final chance to make amends. He closed his eyes and envisioned the child. He almost lost a sobering reminder of how far he had fallen. Inside the restaurant, Clarissa Farnham and Lauren Patterson had already taken their positions. Clarissa, regally poised in a velvet-cushioned booth near the bar, observed every person who came through the door. She had chosen a low-profile black dress, an unusually discreet choice for a woman who thrived on elegance. Meanwhile, Lauren sat at a corner table with a laptop case at her side, concealing the recording equipment. Their plan was to catch Harper's confession on tape, guaranteeing that no Farnham influence could bury the evidence. Finally, Marcus spotted Harper Lane gliding through the entrance, wearing a sleek dress that shimmered under the chandeliers. Her confidence radiated. She believed Marcus was ready to finalize their future together, to forsake Elena and the child for the sake of their twisted romance. He inhaled sharply, steeled himself, and stepped out of his car. By the time he entered the restaurant, the maitre d' was already directing Harper toward a dimly lit table. Marcus approached, forcing what he hoped looked like a genuine smile. "Harper," he murmured, feigning relief. "I'm glad you came." He glanced around to ensure Lauren had started recording. A small nod from Lauren confirmed everything was in place. Harper rested her chin on her manicured hand, eyes gleaming with anticipation. "I've been waiting for this call. You've kept me in the dark, darling. Is Elena finally out of the picture?" Marcus swallowed the bile rising in his throat. "Yes, or she will be. I just need you to confirm a few details first." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "The doctors suspect something unusual about Elena's condition. But if we're going to keep her labeled as unfit, we need to be thorough. Tell me again how you administered the medication." Harper's lips twisted into a proud smirk. "It's simple. Microdoses, carefully measured. I'd slip a small amount into her drinks, tea, smoothies, or any snack I prepared at the mansion. After a few weeks she got dizzy, fainted in the garden, remember?" Her voice grew more excited. "That was my idea to adjust the dosage. I made sure it looked like normal pregnancy stress. We were so close to the perfect outcome, it's hardly my fault she ended up in the hospital." Marcus forced a rueful smile. "You're right. None of this would have happened if Elena hadn't been so trusting." He paused, feeling the unholy weight of his words. Harper nodded, sipping her wine. "That's the problem with her. She's too naive. Once the doctors declare her incompetent and the custody goes to you, we can finally be together. No one can stop us, especially not Clarissa." At that moment, Clarissa Farnham rose from her booth, her face a storm cloud of controlled rage. She took 2 measured steps toward Harper, followed by Lauren, who discreetly signaled the authorities waiting just outside. Before Harper could register the shift, 2 uniformed police officers stepped in. One of them produced handcuffs, as the other read Harper her rights. Harper's eyes flashed from confusion to fury. She lunged at Marcus, her nails raking the sleeve of his suit jacket. "You set me up!" she screeched. "Marcus, you promised me." Marcus stood frozen, guilt and relief warring inside him. He caught Lauren's steely gaze. This was the evidence Eleanor needed, the incontrovertible proof that Harper had masterminded the drugging. Clarissa, trembling with an emotion that bordered on disgust, stared at Harper's venomous outburst. Outside the restaurant, cameras snapped in rapid succession. The paparazzi had been tipped off. Flashbulbs illuminated Harper's furious face as the police escorted her away. The moment crackled with finality. Marcus's heart pounded. He knew the Farnham name would be dragged through the headlines. Yet as he watched the squad car door slam shut, he felt a flood of remorse for every choice that had led them here, and a flicker of hope that, at last, Elena and their unborn child might be safe. Back inside, Clarissa turned to Marcus. Her lips pressed tight and her eyes were cold, but there was a glimmer of relief too. "We got her," she managed through clenched teeth. Marcus simply nodded. He knew that although Harper was in custody, the reckoning with Elena was only beginning. The Farnham family's darkest hour had come to light, and there would be a long, arduous path to rebuilding the trust that was shattered in the name of wealth, vanity, and fear. In the midst of the chaos, Elena went into labor unexpectedly at 38 weeks. Perhaps it was the stress of the investigation or her fragile condition, but she found herself rushed to the hospital in the early morning hours, accompanied by Clarissa and Lauren. Marcus arrived after the arrest, torn between shame and fear, desperate to be by Elena's side. Elena's labor was long and harrowing. The medical staff worked diligently to ensure the baby remained safe. Marcus hovered outside the delivery room, unsure if Elena even wanted him there. But Clarissa, swallowing her own anger toward her son, insisted he stay to witness the birth of his child. "If Elena has any hope of healing, and if you want to be a part of it, you belong by that door," she told him. Elena gave birth to a baby girl. The infant's cries filled the room, an aria of new life amidst the rubble of betrayal. For one sacred moment, the tension dissipated as they gazed upon the newborn, small and perfect. Elena wept, cradling her daughter close. Marcus stood at a distance, tears streaming down his face, unsure if he was welcome to approach. Elena, in a gesture of mercy that surprised even herself, beckoned him. "You may hold her," she whispered. Their daughter, with a faint tuft of dark hair, opened her eyes briefly, oblivious to the drama that had preceded her arrival. She squirmed in her father's arms, and Marcus felt his heart clench with a blend of love and regret. Over the following months, Elena focused on healing and caring for her newborn, whom she named Gabriella. Living arrangements were complicated. Elena stayed in a separate wing of the mansion, while legal matters involving Harper wound through the courts. Harper's trial for attempted poisoning was sensationalized in the media. She tried to pin all blame on Marcus, claiming she was merely following his instructions. But the recorded conversation and Lauren's thorough investigation left her defense in tatters. As Gabriella grew, the Farnhams worked to create a sense of normalcy. Elena had consulted a lawyer for divorce, but she delayed filing, torn by the sincerity of Marcus's attempts to atone. He went to therapy, cut all ties with Harper, publicly condemned his actions, and cooperated fully with law enforcement. Clarissa Farnham supported Elena unconditionally, but also hoped for a resolution that didn't shatter the family. When Gabriella was nearly a year old, she uttered her first coherent word. It happened in the sunlit nursery, with Elena, Marcus, and Clarissa present. The baby turned to Marcus, extended her tiny arms, and said in a halting voice, "Ha, ha, purr." Elena froze. Marcus's face went pale. Clarissa looked aghast. They recognized the name instantly. Harper. No baby's babbling. It was the mistress's name. Out of all the words Gabriella could have chosen, Mama, Papa, Nana, it was Harper that escaped her lips. In that moment, it was as though the entire family was thrust back into the swirling darkness of betrayal. Elena felt tears sting her eyes, not because the baby understood anything about the woman who had threatened her life, but because that single word carried so much weight. It was a brutal reminder of the scars that would never fully fade. Elena picked up Gabriella, holding her protectively. The little girl repeated the sound. Hap-purr? She was trying out a new syllable, clueless of the significance. Marcus, anguished, reached out to them, but Elena stepped back, shaken. After that incident, Elena realized that the trauma lingered like a silent ghost in the Farnham mansion. Even as Harper faced criminal charges, the memory of what she and Marcus had done haunted every corridor. Elena sought counseling, determined to not let bitterness consume her. She recognized that while Harper was the primary instigator, Marcus's complicity had almost destroyed them all. A few weeks later, Elena found the courage to read Marcus's written confessions. He had penned letters in therapy, describing his remorse, his toxic entanglement with Harper, and how fear had clouded his judgment. He wrote, "I will never forgive myself, but I hope someday you'll see that I have changed." Elena sensed sincerity, but trust was another matter. It would be a long road to rebuild it if possible at all. When Harper's trial concluded, she was sentenced to a term in prison for attempted poisoning, assault on an unborn child, and blackmail. The judge offered no leniency, especially after hearing how Harper had systematically drugged a pregnant woman. As the gavel struck and Harper glared at Marcus in the courtroom, it was clear she harbored unrepentant hatred. Her final words before being led away were a venomous promise: "I'll find a way to make you pay." But the Farnhams had done everything in their power to ensure she would never threaten them again. In the quiet weeks after Harper's sentencing, Elena thought endlessly about her daughter's future. She wanted Gabriella to have a father who loved her. Yet the knowledge of what Marcus had done weighed on her heart. She considered divorcing Marcus and moving back to Florence, where her parents had offered to help. But Clarissa Farnham, now fiercely protective of both Elena and the baby, assured her that if she chose to stay, she would have unwavering support and financial independence. No Farnham would ever dare cross her again. Marcus approached Elena one sunny afternoon in the Rose Garden, a place Elena had always loved for its peaceful beauty. He carried Gabriella in his arms, the baby giggling at the rustle of leaves. With a gentle caution, he offered the baby to Elena. "You're the best mother she could have," he said quietly. Elena held Gabriella close. She was silent for a long moment, then sighed. "I still love you, or maybe I love the man I thought you were, and that breaks my heart," she said, voice trembling. Marcus nodded. "I can't ask for forgiveness, but I am asking for a chance to be a better man, a better father, maybe someday a better husband." Elena searched his eyes. She saw agony there, a remorse that felt raw and genuine. "I can't promise anything right now," she said softly, "but for Gabriella's sake, I'm willing to see how we can move forward." They began couples therapy, setting rules. Elena would keep her private suite until she felt comfortable sharing a space with Marcus again. She controlled every aspect of Gabriella's care, from choosing her pediatrician to deciding which events she attended. Marcus did whatever Elena asked, no matter how small, hoping to regain some semblance of her trust. Slowly, Elena witnessed changes in him, small but significant. He no longer cared about high-stakes deals or expanding Farnham Tower. Instead, he spent evenings reading to Gabriella, feeding her pureed vegetables while making silly faces to coax a laugh. On weekends, he took Elena on simple family outings, walks in the park, visits to the local farmers' market. He set aside the Farnham bravado and learned the humility he'd sorely lacked. Elena herself underwent a metamorphosis. No longer naive or blindly trusting, she found a quiet strength in her ordeal. She continued her philanthropic pursuits, focusing on a foundation that aided pregnant women in crisis. She discovered a new purpose: to advocate for vulnerable mothers, ensuring no one else fell prey to manipulative relationships like hers. At times, Elena felt haunted by the memory of Harper's toxic presence. She sometimes woke in the night, drenched in sweat, recalling the hospital bed, the uncertainty of her child's fate. In those moments, she would tiptoe into Gabriella's room, pick her up gently, and cradle her close, breathing in the scent of baby powder. Each heartbeat reminded her that they had survived. On Gabriella's second birthday, a small party was held in the Farnham garden. No paparazzi, no lavish spectacle, just close friends, Clarissa, Lauren Patterson, and a few trusted family members. The toddler squealed with delight at the balloons and cake. Elena, more radiant than she'd been in a long time, watched her little girl stomp around, trying out her wobbly steps. Marcus lingered nearby, giving Gabriella space to explore, but staying close enough if she stumbled. He caught Elena's eye at one point, offering a gentle smile. Elena smiled back, a silent truce that spoke volumes. Lauren pulled Elena aside during the festivities. "You've come so far," she said, her voice warm with admiration. "You've been through hell and back, and here you are, glowing with your child." Elena exhaled, a tear escaping her eye. "I couldn't have done it without you. You saved me, saved both of us." Lauren squeezed her hand. "Let's just say it was a team effort." She paused. "Harper might try something again, maybe a lawsuit or an appeal. You need to be ready." Elena nodded. "I am. I won't ever be caught off guard again." Over the next few years, Elena chose a cautious path. She never fully confirmed to Marcus that she would remain married, but she allowed him to steadily earn back a semblance of love and trust. She saw a therapist who helped her process the betrayal, the near-fatal drugging, and the complexities of forging a new life when the father of your child was complicit in your trauma. Marcus, for his part, displayed unwavering dedication. He donated a significant portion of his personal wealth to Elena's charitable initiatives, not as a bribe for forgiveness, but to demonstrate his commitment to righting wrongs. He publicly denounced domestic violence and exploitation, standing with Elena at fundraisers, and he never so much as looked at another woman. The humiliating scandal had left him without illusions about his own moral frailty. He was determined never to repeat his mistakes. When Gabriella was 4, she asked about the word she'd once uttered Harper, which she heard in hushed conversations. Elena gently explained, in child-appropriate terms, that it was the name of someone who had hurt Mommy. Gabriella's big eyes welled with tears, and she clung to Elena. That moment crystallized for Elena how important it was to keep their family honest. Even if the truth was ugly, it had to be faced so that wounds could truly heal. Now, half a decade after the horrifying chapter that almost destroyed them, Elena stands in the Farnham garden watching 6-year-old Gabriella chase butterflies along the rose bushes. She reflects on the day she nearly lost her life, the day the mistress drugged her, aided by a husband she once believed was a fairy tale prince. The memory remains, etched into her soul, but the searing pain has dulled to an ache, a cautionary reminder of how darkness can lurk behind the most glittering facades. Marcus steps out to join them, calmer than she's ever known him. He kneels to scoop Gabriella into his arms, spinning her around as she shrieks with laughter. Elena feels a complex cocktail of emotions: gratitude they survived, sorrow for what was lost, and a nuanced forgiveness that has grown over years of effort. She never forgot how a single chilling word from her daughter's lips, Harper, revealed the lingering ghosts of their betrayal. It was a reminder that even innocence can echo the darkness of adult sins. But that same child, Gabriella, was also the beacon that guided them through the storm. Her fragile existence forced them to confront truths, to shatter lies, and to forge a path toward redemption. Elena has learned that love is not always a fairy tale, and that wealth cannot shield you from the worst of human nature. But she also learned that resilience is born in the deepest pits of despair. Her journey stands as testament that the human heart, though breakable, can heal in ways that inspire awe. If it were not for that single fateful word uttered by an unknowing baby, the truth might have remained buried. But destiny has a way of surfacing, even through the innocent lips of a child. In a world that once seemed all brightness and glamour, Elena now walks with both eyes open, cherishing the realness of pain and joy. And in the quiet corners of her heart, she carries both memories of betrayal and the unwavering hope that tomorrow can always be better than yesterday. Shadows may loom in even the most gilded halls, yet resilience often glows where darkness lurks. Elena's story bears witness to that unbreakable spirit. She entered a glittering world of affluence with bright dreams of love and family. But betrayal, the slow, poisonous kind, threatened to rob her of everything she cherished. A cunning mistress, a morally weak husband, and a web of deception conspired against her very life and the life she carried inside. The fallout laid bare one undeniable fact: even the best of us can falter when pressured by greed and fear. And still, Elena survived. Not only that, she healed on her own terms. It didn't happen overnight. She had to navigate heartbreak, legal battles, and the haunting memory of a single word uttered by her infant daughter. Yet her determination to protect Gabriella, to reclaim her agency, and to find her voice redefined what true victory looks like. She refused to be a victim of fate. That is the heart of every battle against betrayal, recognizing that evil can be unmasked, broken trust can be confronted, and life can go on stronger if scarred. And as Elena found hope amid upheaval, she discovered a deeper purpose. From helping at-risk mothers to advocating for women caught in toxic environments, she channeled her ordeal into power. If this journey sparked inspiration, if you felt the tension, the relief, and the ultimate triumph, please join us in sharing it. Pass the story on, spread the lessons learned, and become part of the community that refuses to stay silent when cruelty emerges. Your like, your share, and your subscription help ensure more people find these messages of courage and hope. Keep fighting for light in the darkest moments, and never forget that one act of bravery can change the entire course of a life.